One. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Wonderful hoodie evening, and that is in fact what I am wearing. Tonight I'm going to do something a little bit different with how I present what I want to talk about. I have a few disparate stories that I want to cover, so what I'm going to do is cover each one of them with less of an emphasis on tying them all together. It's great when I can tie everything together, but I can't always do that. So tonight's going to be one of those ragtag group of stories that I pulled together that I personally find interesting. So thank you guys very much for joining me. Let's get into it. So I know you guys are familiar with Sam Brinton. You know him, you love him. He looks like Megamind when he's not wearing makeup. He has been arrested and his mugshot just came out today. And I know I made a joke about him looking like Megamind because I can't escape the comparison myself, but beyond that, I don't really want to make fun of how he looks because I feel kind of sorry for him, and I'm about to explain why, so bear with me. I'm a super empathetic person. I really care about why people are the way they are, and it can be kind of disturbing and really uncomfortable to feel that way when you're looking at people who are supposed to be your political enemies. But when I look at somebody like Sam Brinton, it's pretty clear to me that he's incredibly confused, very misled, and it's likely that too few people in his life have told him no. And the fact that the Biden administration hired him in place of other people with similar qualifications, because Sam Brinton is qualified. I just looked this up. He went to MIT. He's got a bunch of different degrees. He is not unqualified. But I am convinced that they chose him for his LGBTQ activism, not necessarily for his actual educational bona fides. So I just wanted to throw it out there because Michael Knowles mentioned something about this earlier today. I do feel bad for him. I feel empathetic because it's pretty clear to me that this man has some undiagnosed mental problems that no one has ever pushed him to fix. And this is why I am constantly touting the concept of accountability. Without accountability, people just really go crazy. And this really ties into some of the broader themes we're seeing with cultural narcissism and solipsism, however that's pronounced. It's a great name word. It just means like super selfishness and super focused on yourself and unwilling to view anyone else's point of view. What I see here is a lack of accountability and a lack of the ability to say no. And this is a huge problem for people who get really famous. I don't know if you guys keep up with Cher or any of the celebrities like that, but people like Britney Spears, people like Kanye West strikes me as having some of this issue. Once you reach a certain point, in the instance of celebrities, it's a point of fame, self-importance, actual cultural significance. And in the case of Sam, it's the status of being an LGBTQ icon, somebody who's really an activist for the cause, who's very high profile, who's dressing in such a way that gets a lot of attention and puts all the spotlight on him all the time. These people tend to become surrounded by yes men. And the reason that happens to LGBTQIA+ activists is because they are that protected class. No one can really say no without the underlying concern that it might be viewed as some kind of hate crime, which makes it unlikely for them to ever really have real friends. And that really does sadden me. And you see this for celebrities too. I'm starting to think that the LGBT activist group is a kind of celebrity with some of the same issues that you see with celebrities. The inability to be told no, the lack of people around them to hold them accountable, the mindset they can do whatever they want and they can do no wrong, they can get away with murder. Like, for example, Sam was stealing luggage off of luggage carousels at the airport. And he was saying that, he just made a mistake, but he didn't check any luggage on this flight, actually. So he could not have made a mistake. He shouldn't have been at the luggage carousel in the first place. But I think that if someone had taken him aside and been like, Sam, you have to stop. You're going to get in huge trouble. Why would you do this? And just lost their minds at him, he might have changed his ways. He might not have been fired. Because again, looking at his resume, he's not unqualified. But again, he was likely hired because of his prominent position as an activist, that celebrity status. That's just such a dearth of accountability that results in stuff like this. First of all, Sam dressing like this. And secondly, him doing whatever he wants and not really expecting any backlash. I think leftists view themselves as a kind of celebrities because they genuinely don't think there will be any backlash to the bad things they do. And because so many of the institutions are so far on the right side, they're right in many instances, which is deeply concerning. This is not something that we should be doing to an entire class or group or party of people in our society. This is terribly dangerous. Obviously, we all know this won't end well. I don't think I'm telling you guys anything you don't know, but it's something to think about. And on the same note as the Biden administration failing, I would like to remind you all of this delightful article. Stay alive, Joe Biden. Democrats need little more from the frontrunner beyond his corporeal presence. This was a delightful article from The Atlantic in March 2020. Very interesting concept. They just wanted someone to run against Trump, and they didn't need Biden to do anything. I don't know if you guys remember, but during the 2020 election, Joe Biden was nowhere to be seen. He called a lid every day at like 9 a.m. And I remember this because I would go by Sour Patch Lids on Twitter, obviously, and I would constantly be tweeting, all right, I'm calling a lid, L-I-D, for the day. And often it would be like 9 a.m., 11 a.m. And this just means he won't be talking to the press. He won't be having any kind of public engagements for the rest of the day. And that is not even something that I knew was a thing until Joe Biden was running for office. Incredibly distressing to watch even before he was in office. But what we're seeing now is that being alive is not enough, as left-wing activists are urging Biden not to run again. Whoops, jumped ahead. Let's see if we can hear this. I'm going to unplug my headphones so that hopefully you guys can get the audio. I'm going to keep a close eye on the chat.
Looking to win the White House in 2024.
I'm concerned with Joe Biden's low polling.
With his low popularity, it's way too much of a gamble.
If he runs, the election is at serious risk.
Joe Biden representing the status quo in 2024 simply won't cut it.
We can't afford to risk the White House to a Republican who could defeat status quo Joe.
The threat of the GOP has become all too obvious. The stakes could not be higher.
Our ideas are way more popular than Joe Biden is.
Joe Biden running undermines the Democratic Party's chances in 2024.
There's no question that we have a climate emergency. It's a question of willingness to do something about it.
It's not the time for half measures. All Americans need universal health care now.
There's no room to compromise when our abortion rights are on the line.
We can't afford to lose. Don't run, Joe.
Don't run, Joe.
Don't run, Joe.
Don't run, Joe.
So these are progressive activists who are telling Joe Biden that he should not be running again. I genuinely think that this should be a sign for him. I think this is something he should listen to. First of all, I want to point out how old he would be getting into office for the second time. Although at the same time, I know that, for example, Donald Trump is also going to be, approaching 80, 82 years old by the time he gets in for the second time. Don't run, Joe. That's the blunt message a progressive left-wing Democratic group is sending in a new television ad in New Hampshire, urging President Biden not to seek re-election in 2024, contending he will wind up putting a Republican in the White House. Roots Action, which describes itself on its Twitter page as a progressive group that helped defeat Trump, began running the minute-long Don't Run Joe spot in the Granite State on Tuesday night, employing the voices of Democratic voters to outline the reasons why Biden, 80, should not be the nominee in 2 years. Okay, well, first of all, he would be 82 years old by the time he was trying to run again. We can't afford to risk the White House to a Republican who could defeat status quo Joe. Wow, they even gave him a title, Status Quo Joe. Interesting. Said one New Hampshire voter as images showed former President Donald Trump, 76, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, 44. Just as a matter of curiosity, if you could have one person in the office who was 76 and one person who was 44, which would you rather have simply on the basis of their age? We are constantly talking about how we need to get these old politicians out and get some new people in. How about a Gen Xer? Just saying. I know last time I brought up that I had doubts about Donald Trump. I got attacked for that from the right, for sure. People saying that DeSantis needs to wait his turn. That is not how politics works. This is the moment for DeSantis to jump in and try to make this happen. But I'm not getting into that tonight. We're talking about Joe Biden. I'm concerned with Joe Biden's low polling, said another. With his low popularity, it's too much of a gamble. I completely agree with these sentiments, okay? The difference between me and them is that I want Biden to run again and I want him to flop and fail miserably. But based on what we saw in the most recent midterms, that's not what's happening. Excuse me. I don't know how to breathe. So they're saying our ideas are way more popular than Joe Biden's. Okay, so they think he's outdated. They think that he's old school. He's too much of a conservative for them, which there are certainly people who think that. Like, it's been very interesting to watch AOC bow to Nancy Pelosi as she's forced to do so. But I think that these people are not correct. I don't think people are as extreme as these people seem to think they are. Even though he has poor polling, it is not because he's not progressive enough. It's because he's doing too much. I don't know if you guys saw the recent images from the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. That bill, not about marriage, not about respecting anything of the kind, because they had drag queens who perform for minors there. And I was told on Twitter that I was trying to take rights away from other people by not thinking that the Respect for Marriage Act was a good idea. And then we have drag queens at the White House as the rainbow flag lights are shone up against the building itself. I digress. That was crazy to me. I was like, this is so clearly not what this is about. It's clearly not about respecting marriage. It's not about making sure that gay people can get married. If it was, I would just refer you to Obergefell. It was passed in 14. I don't remember what year it was passed. It was already the case throughout the U.S., even though there were states that pushed back against it. This was something different. And even in 2006, Joe Biden was pushing back on the idea of legalizing gay marriage. He said he didn't think it was a good idea. He voted in favor of the Defense of Marriage Act, which stated that marriage should be between one man and one woman. What Biden is doing is incredibly progressive, but it's still not good enough for these people. And I do agree with him that he should not run again just because he's too old. And honestly, at this point, I kind of feel bad for him, even though he's proven himself to be kind of an awful person. But I just thought I'd let you guys know about that. He's getting pressure from the left to not run again, and certainly pressure from the right. And I think from people even within his own White House, which is disturbing for sure. All right, I'm going to try to keep track of everything I talk about so that when I see you guys' comments in the chat, I'll be able to line everything up. But we're going to skip now to another topic that's kind of related to the whole drag queen thing, but not necessarily. We're going to talk about the trans hockey team. Now, this is actually something that I consider to be a good solution to the trans sports ball players. I thought they should have their own team. But I was concerned because there is such a difference between trans men, aka women, and trans women, aka men. Clearly, I don't think that biological men and biological women should be playing against each other because, drumroll please, someone is going to get hurt. Everyone knows there's a risk of injury. Team Trans Ice Hockey hits back, saying there's no ill will between the two after female trans player left male trans athlete with concussion. This just gets confusing. I'm just going to call them he and she or refer to them by their first names. With concussion and brutal shove in NHL-backed game. Yeah, so the NHL came out in favor, saying that trans women are women or some other nonsense that we know is not true. Let's read the quick summary here. Team Trans Ice Hockey hit back after a player injury at their tournament. A female trans player, Lexi, the male, left a male trans athlete. What's their name? I don't remember. Danny. Yeah, so Lexi and Danny. Lexi is the much larger player. Danny is the much smaller player with a concussion in a November game. Lexi Seaton, 32, earned backlash after knocking Danny Maki out on the ice. TTIH tweeted that playing hockey comes with risks widely known to athletes. They also said that they'd organize the event, not the National Hockey League. TTIH says there is no ill will between the players and Maki has recovered since. I think that's perfectly fair. There are 100% risks when you play, especially hockey is incredibly violent, and everybody knows this. I think that they should continue to have these athletes play against each other until it becomes overwhelmingly clear that there is a huge biological advantage to people who are male, people who have that XY chromosome in their DNA. I think this is the only way we solve this problem. And while I feel bad for Danny says Danny has no ill will against Lexi, so I can't really be offended on Danny's behalf. I just can't help thinking that it's like a mental deficiency to not notice the difference in size between these players. Like, who in their right mind could really look at a lineup of male to female transgender players and female to male players and say, yeah, these people look exactly the same. They're the same height. They have the same width of shoulders. They have the same hip spread. They have the same center of gravity. They have the same bone density. They have the same testosterone levels. None of this is accurate. You should be able to look at the comparisons between male to female and female to male trans people and say, yeah, there's a huge discrepancy here. And it just boggles my mind that they're allowing this to happen, but honestly, fine if they want their own league, as long as they don't Fallon Fox it up and put a male to female transgender athlete against a biologically female athlete who's fighting or playing as a female athlete. I just think it's fair. I just think it's dumb. I think we live in one of the dumbest possible timelines, and I'm honestly kind of disappointed to live in this one. It could be much more interesting, although Elon Musk is certainly spicing things up. That's someone we're not talking about today. I feel like we talk about him too much, and it just gets exhausting. Now, this last article is a little bit incendiary, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. This is from a magazine called Fortune.com. Okay, it's a Fortune publication, and it's so it's like health oriented. Cool. Coronavirus. People who skipped their COVID vaccine are at higher risk of traffic accidents, according to a new study. Well, that is an interesting new study. And before we even start, I just want to throw out that I initially thought that maybe this is because they are less risk averse than people who want their COVID shots. If you want a COVID shot and you're trying to prevent COVID at all costs, if you thought that if you thought the vaccine would keep you from getting COVID and you were willing to take it despite knowing the risks, then you are likely more safety oriented and more likely to be cautious and careful. But let's read. This just makes it sound like these people are just kind of dumb, which I don't think is a fair analysis. If you pass on getting the COVID vaccine, you might be a lot more likely to get into a car crash. This isn't even the worst part of this. Listen to the last part. Or at least these are the findings of a new study published this month in the American Journal of Medicine. During the summer of 2021, Canadian researchers examined the encrypted government-held records of more than 11 million adults, 16% of whom hadn't received the COVID vaccine. First of all, is there not a HIPAA in Canada that prevents this kind of research? That's just my question right offhand. They found that the unvaccinated people were 72% more likely to be involved in a severe traffic crash in which at least one person was transported to the hospital than those who were vaccinated. That's similar to the increased risk of car crashes for people who have sleep apnea, though only about half of that of people who abuse alcohol, researchers found. The excess risk of car crash posed by unvaccinated drivers, quote, exceeds the safety gains from modern automobile engineering advances and also imposes risks on other road users, the authors wrote. Oh, that's fascinating. That makes it sound like they have an ulterior motive. Well, these people obviously are putting others at risk, and obviously leftists are going to say, and authoritarians are going to say, well, that's exactly what happens when you don't get the COVID vaccination. I don't know why I pronounce it that way. My bad. I don't think that's fair either. So let's follow on. The excess risk of car crash posed by unvaccinated drivers. Yeah, okay, we covered that. Of course, skipping a COVID vaccine does not mean that someone will get into a car crash. Instead, the authors theorize that people who resist public health recommendations might also neglect basic road safety guidelines. Why would they ignore the rules of the road? Distrust of government, a belief in freedom, misconceptions of daily risks, faith in natural protection, antipathy toward regulation, poverty, misinformation, A lack of resources and personal beliefs are potential reasons proposed by the authors. Yeah, it's probably all that poverty. They're just poor and stupid. The findings are significant enough that primary care doctors should consider counseling unvaccinated patients on traffic safety, and, this is inflammatory, insurance companies might base changes to insurance policies on vaccination data, the authors suggest. So not only is a study gathering data, they are also positing that insurance companies, they're putting pressure on these industries, should charge more to people who are not vaccinated based on how they might possibly, potentially, maybe drive. Intriguing. First responders may also consider taking precautions to protect themselves from COVID when responding to traffic crashes, the authors added, as it's more likely that a driver is unvaccinated than vaccinated. That is wild to me that they would say that. That's insane. Honestly, COVID is simply a way for them to bring down the hammer of authoritarianism. A few states are considering bringing back masks because case numbers are up. Case numbers, not deaths. The case count of COVID is increasing. That's an issue. Fine. It might cause serious problems down the road for some people who are at a disadvantage for health. But they're bringing back masks, and it's starting to feel to me like it's just an exercise in authoritarianism, and it's really, really distressing. Let's read on. The findings suggest that unvaccinated adults need to be careful indoors with other people and outside with surrounding traffic. The authors concluded, I would like to meet and grill the surveyors in this study. This is not a well done study. It strikes me as highly unscientific, and I do not like it. This isn't the first time researchers have examined the link between behavior and vaccination status. Of course it's not. They need to prove that people who aren't vaccinated are a risk to other people. That's entirely their goal. Among young adults, a 2021 study published in the Journal of Bioeconomics found a correlation between self-reported risky driving and having skipped their flu vaccine. Oh my gosh. It examined the survey responses of more than 100,000 Canadians. Oh, interesting. Our new weekly Impact Report newsletter examines how ESG news and trends are shaping the roles and responsibilities of today's executives. Subscribe here. No, thank you, Fortune. All right, let's hop over here to this Fox article breaking this down for us. Study suggesting unvaccinated should pay higher car insurance premiums draws outrage. Yeah, no kidding. Jason Rantz wrote, exact kind of nonsense study that sets the stage for car insurance companies charging the unvaccinated more for coverage. Nothing would surprise me less at this point. A new study published this month in the American Journal of Medicine claimed those unvaccinated for COVID-19 were more likely to get in traffic accidents, drawing outrage on Twitter. The study's authors suggested insurance companies should make changes to policies of unvaccinated individuals. The observed risks might also justify changes to driver insurance policies in the future. The Canadian, researchers advised. The principal investigator for the study, Dr. Donald Radelmeyer at the Sunnybrook Research Institute, claimed his research demonstrated traffic risks were 50 to 70% more frequent for adults who'd not been vaccinated compared to those who had. This does not mean that COVID-19 vaccination directly prevents traffic crashes. Instead, it suggests adults who do not follow public health advice may also neglect the rules of the road, he concluded. I don't even know if that's a fair analysis of the issue. As the report went viral late Tuesday, medical professionals and scientists weighed in on the controversial study. Here's a joke of a study claiming the unvaccinated are involved in more car accidents. There's a lot wrong with it. Dr. Claire Craig, a British diagnostic pathologist, wrote in a Twitter thread. Whoops, we couldn't access this tweet. Interesting. I wonder why they couldn't get that tweet. I'm curious and I want to find it now. The doctor argued the study's main problem was that it was morally misguided, but she also accused the researchers of misusing their data. They're definitely using it to make a political argument, which I do not like. That is not science. That's not science. Craig argued the study was flawed. The study was flawed for a number of reasons, including lumping in unvaccinated pedestrians injured in accidents. Oh, interesting. These claims are based on accidents which resulted in hospitalization. Each person's injury is referred to in the paper as a crash, even when the injured person was a pedestrian, she wrote. That's very interesting. The fundamental flaw, she said, was that the study relied on the government database of vaccinated individuals. She pointed out that you could still be in an accident and not going to the hospital, and thus wouldn't have been included in the study. Interesting. Linking to a table from the study, she wrote, no matter which way you chop the data, the risk is apparently increased by about the same amount. She argued that the study's data could be used to make any sort of claims about the unvaccinated from having a higher rate of giving to charity or recycling simply because the denominator was artificially small. Other medical professionals mocked the study as absurd. Dr. Vinay Prasad, a hematologist, oncologist, and health researcher, laughed at its conclusions. This also repeats the dumb idea that primary care doctors should specialty counsel unvaccinated people about driving, he tweeted. Engineer and Substack author Polymath also mocked the study as unintended satire. I get awfully tired of saying these vaccination studies are not telling you helpful things. They are misattributing, confounding variables. So it's nice that these researchers made my argument for me in this satirical form, the user wrote. The Twitter user argued that the ultimate goal of such studies is to treat certain members of society like outcasts. The ultimate goal of these studies is to say those people are the outgroup and deserve every bad thing that happens to them. We should make their lives worse on purpose. Entirely correct. Entirely correct. That's exactly what this study is saying, which is just genuinely disturbing, disheartening, but not surprising coming from Canada. Some conservative media figures agreed that the study had nefarious intentions, using science to advocate that insurance companies punish the unvaccinated. Radio host Jason Rantz tweeted, "This is the exact kind of nonsense studies that sets the stage for car insurance companies charging the unvaccinated more for coverage. It is transparent." Podcast host Dave Rubin slammed the study in a tweet. "This deserves the rare bananas clown emoji combo." The study looked at 6,682 traffic accidents in Ontario, Canada during the summer of 2021 and found that the unvaccinated accounted for 1,682 crashes, or 25% of them, which the researchers claimed was equal to a 72% increased relative risk compared with those vaccinated. Researchers propose there could be a correlation between distrust of the government, belief in freedom, misconceptions of everyday risks, faith in natural protection, antipathy toward regulation. Yeah, all this stuff we read before. I am just so grossed out by the idea that a belief in freedom is going to lead you to be in a car accident. That's genuinely distressing to me. But also not really surprising from left-leaning media. So let's see what you guys are saying. Thank you guys again so much for joining me this evening. I always have a good time with you guys. Greetings. Okay, so Sam Brinton. Okay, but he probably got into MIT because of diversity too. Not sure. Couldn't prove or disprove that. That is an interesting idea. I do feel bad for him though, to an extent. Yeah, 100%. Somebody says, "I'm a dangerous driver." Well, that's not a good sign. That probably means you're unvaccinated. It's like when a kid is really good at sports, they can avoid any ramification. Exactly. So people that society thinks are like special in some way, like Cher. Her Twitter account is a testament to her mental fragility. And Madonna, holy cow, have you seen Madonna's bathtub videos? That lady is crazy. And apparently no doctor will tell her that she should not get more lip injections or more Botox. That woman is terrifying. And Britney Spears, like legit, that lady had a conservatorship for a reason. She's posting nothing but naked pictures now. And she's clearly like, I don't know what's going on with her. I, again, really feel bad for her. Because she was so hounded and she went through such the plight of a child star, but she like needed guidance and leadership. And I don't know if that conservatorship was right for her. I don't know enough about that case, but now she's just really gone off the rails and her kids are like, we feel really bad. We don't know what's going on and we don't know how to help her. So that really is hard to see. But I mean, she's not getting accountability now. Neither is Madonna, and they look the worse for it. And these special victim groups like trans kids, man, nobody is going to hold them accountable. No one's going to tell them no, just like nobody told Sam Brinton no. It's a serious problem. The inability to tell people no, the loss of stuff like shame and guilt in our society. I will say that I don't think shame and guilt have been lost in our society. I think they've been misattributed, and now people don't understand them. They don't understand the feeling, and they're too quick to blame it on other people instead of introspecting and being like, why do I feel this way? Did I do something wrong? No, I couldn't have possibly done something wrong. I'm a very dangerous driver. I'm not vaxxed. There you go. As long as you know you're a dangerous driver, be careful out there. I wonder if there's going to be more bags being found because there's no way it's just 2 bags. Yeah, somebody was saying he was up to like 10 bags, but I didn't see that. Alex Wagner is an MSNBC host, or was. Oh boy. He was always in the basement. Yeah, Joe Biden was 100% always in the basement. And somebody else pointing out that activist ad shows DeSantis as the threat. No, it shows Donald Trump too. So I think they're concerned probably equally about both of them. Can barely hear it. Yeah, so I turned up the volume. Hopefully you guys were able to hear that a little bit better as we went. I was just thinking, isn't it a little early? Here's a question, Lids. Do you think campaign commercials really change or influence someone's convictions to vote in 2022? I think they're out of touch. Yeah, I really do too. I don't think they make a huge difference because by the time they're putting, even by now, like we're 2 years ahead of an election, I'm pretty sure that people are 100% convinced of who they want to vote for, especially given the midterms. I think that people are just going to vote along party lines just like they always were, and things are just going to get more and more isolated and more like drifting apart from each other. It's really sad. You guys can tell me what you think about that. You guys should tell me if you guys have ever seen a campaign article, like a political ad, that changed your mind about who to vote for. Because I'm sure they exist. They have to be extremely well done, obviously. I personally am not aware of any, but we'll see. 2024 election is going to be a crap show. Agreed. Age is fine if they are not old. I don't think that's the case. Nancy Pelosi is not old. Chuck Schumer is not mentally old. They need to go. They have been in office for decades. They're 85, like 87 years old. These people are stultified. They're fossils. They are petrified wood at this point. And I don't think that there is a meaningful move forward for our country until we're no longer following people who are approaching their 90s. I think that's fully fair analysis. And I think that applies across the board. I think there should 100% be term limits. People always bring up people like Rand Paul, literally like 2 examples of people who should be in office for a longer period of time. If you can't come up with more examples than that, I don't think there's a case to be made for not putting term limits in place. The only issue is that no politician is going to vote for them, so don't worry about that ever happening. DeSantis can do a lot more from Florida. He has a supermajority and a popular support. He's out in 2026. So he's coming up on the end of his term there, and then he will not be making a difference for Florida as the governor. It is his moment. Let's see here. I have some environmental damage that has affected me, and that's why I'm honest about it. So DeSantis should be more than capable. Yeah, for sure. And he was a member of the military. I think people would really respect that. His trusted in group of close advisors is his wife. And I don't think that anybody's going to leak any incriminating crap on him, which I think is great. That's an incredibly strong. I mean, look at Hunter Biden. Look at all this stuff that can come out if you have a family member who is putting your position at risk. And we know that Joe had a brother who was also in on it. And they were literally talking about plausible deniability in these emails and serious issue, serious blackmail material. Other countries love that stuff. If Ron DeSantis were in office, he would be ironclad against all forms of blackmail. And I think that's a huge benefit, honestly. Speaking anecdotally, I don't know anyone who saw a commercial first and said, "Know what? Now I'm voting for Biden instead." But yes, that is sad or true. Yeah, 100%. Andy says, first $50 super chat gets a personalized answering machine message from Lids. My husband is signing me up for terrible things over here, but that would be a lot of fun. I would like that. I actually got a notification she was live tonight. Woo! Happy to have you here, Brie. Normally I have to search you guys based on already knowing when you're live. Oh, I'm glad you got the notification. Honestly, YouTube is just so hit or miss. I think that as a platform, I'm not even convinced it's biased against conservative. I think it's just kind of a crappy platform. WTF is this article's title. Which one are you referring to? Not sure. Quantum Strange Quirk. Woo, hello, welcome. We love you. About the bags, correlation is not causation. That's a great observation too when it comes to this COVID vaccine hesitancy article. People who skip their COVID vaccine are dangerous behind the wheel. This article made me wheeze. This is why journalism is dead. Yeah, I think that it was your tweet. I saw Brie about this and I was like, this is crazy, but it's not necessarily journalism that's dead. It is science that's dead because I don't think we fully understand yet what COVID has done to our scientific institutions. It's going to be a serious problem probably for decades. And I'm genuinely concerned. And watching the medical community deal with the trans kids thing and just make money hand over fist from children whose lives they are ruining is genuinely disturbing. There was a time when every single person in the country, more or less, fully trusted the medical community and had zero issues with any of them. Now I suspect that's highly damaged, truly changed. And I said it before and I'll say it again. I'm starting to think that Catholic hospitals going forward are going to be some of the best and only places to get actual good care that's not ideologically motivated. Like, who thought to write this about unvaccinated drivers? Yeah, they did a study because they're trying to prove that unvaccinated people are a risk to society at large. I'm convinced. Joe Biden was a frequent flyer. He definitely got up the red eye during the debates. He got the red eye during the debates. He frequently called a lid after that. Interesting. Was that the dividing factor? I'm a very aggressive driver. That's because I used to work in law enforcement, not because I'm unvaccinated. Yeah, see, I would credit the way I drive to pretty much anything except being unvaccinated. I do agree that it does kind of boil down to the kind of person who is less concerned about security and safety and the kind of person who just wants the ability to do their own things. Christian says, bruh, thank you. Thank you for your addition to the conversation. Hello from New Zealand. Hello. I hear it's very nice down there. I heard they're going to phase out smoking in New Zealand, which is going to be really interesting. I personally like the idea of cultural emphasis against horrible habits like smoking. Don't think the government should be doing it. But I think there was a successful campaign against the tobacco industry in the U.S. And so hopefully something similar could be done in New Zealand with less of with Jacinda Ardern's pressure. She's quite the authoritarian. Why does everything seem to be overly sexualized, even events that claim to be family friendly all the time? Why? Because they want to dissolve the nuclear family. They do not like the nuclear family. It is a campaign of destruction. You can quote me on that. This is the end result of all this stuff. Like that meeting at the White House, that was not about gay marriage. That was not about nice, friendly gay people who just want to get married. It was trans kids talking about Joe Biden, talking about how we have to protect trans kids and we do this by, mutilating them and giving them all sorts of horrible hormones. And it's, drag queens who literally perform for kids. And it's so obvious. There's such a clear agenda here. We should all be paying very close attention and we should be pushing back against it with every fiber of our being. Sure, it's not too much machine for you. It'll be a serious blow to medicine in general. Yeah, I agree. I remember when I worked in the hospital, I remember thinking, I wonder how long until this all starts to come here. It's not going to be very long, is it? I am nervous. And I was correct for sure. Keenan says to smash the like button. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, etc. Lids, how's your cat? Pray for Mr. Bocas. Did you see Tim's farewell today? Choked me up for real. Thank you so much for bringing that up. There was a time when Bucko was my only friend in the world and I loved him very much. He peed on everything we owned. He marked it all. He was truly a quirky character and really quite something. I already miss him, but I knew that he was happy down there and everybody there loves him very much. But now that I know he's going to be gone from this mortal coil, it makes me very sad. I am so sorry that he is sick, and I hope that they're able to find another wonderful cat to bring charm into their lives and keep their spirits up with their quirky behavior. But Bucko was definitely 1 in a million, and he will certainly be missed. But he had a wonderful life. I say this a lot. Whenever someone is losing a pet, it's terribly hard because there's no replacement. You can't replace your puppy who died. You can't replace, I had a little black cat that was hit by a car when I was a kid, and you can't replace them, but you can give them the best possible life until they're gone from you. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. Unfortunately, very sad. True. Ugh, so disturbing. Andy says Brett will be devastated. Yes, Brett deeply loved Bucko. Brett is over there on Pop Culture Crisis, probably still on right now. They go for a long time in the afternoon. They go for like 3 hours. But yeah, I'm really glad that Bucko got to live a wonderful life. And I know that Tim's going to be really sad he's gone. Hopefully they'll be able to fill the void with another cat who needs another good home. So, Oh, what a horrible note. I'm so sorry. Andy says Bucko will be with Nar in heaven. Nar was Andy's dog for 12 years. She's a wonderful pet. She had terrible tendencies sometimes, but between her and Dip, they shredded everything in our apartment anytime we left. They were the dream team. They had a good time together. And Nar certainly kept us safe by barking at everyone in sight. So much appreciated her company for sure. Anyway, that was kind of a sad note, but yeah, if you have a pet, definitely hug them. Make sure that they know that you love them. Give them unnecessary treats for sure. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow for more of this nonsense. I might try to do 4 stories again like I did today. That was kind of super fun. It was kind of like a patchwork of different ideas. I've intentionally not talked much about Sam Bankman-Fried because I don't find him to be particularly compelling character-wise. He's very unkempt looking. Someone was commenting about how they hope... Now I'm all like stuffed up because that made me weepy thinking about Bucko. I'm not going to talk about Sam Bankman-Fried except to note that I do hope that he sees out the schlub era of tech giants. I did not like people dressing down as far as they did, and Sam Bankman-Fried looks like a total slob. So hopefully we can start getting some actual real adult clothing back into the room and force those millennials to grow up and dress like adults. But I digress. I will see you all tomorrow. Until next time,